Author's Log Supplemental 12.5. I am, as of today, up to 22,991 words. Another 1,000 words, and then I'm gonna catch up to where I need to be on Sunday. So, yay! I'll totally do that tomorrow. I'm just finishing up my first fight scene in the Fun and Games. I know Schwamm's gonna have a fit about that. He'd really like a fight scene like earlier on. I'm like, I can't. He's very action-oriented, and I have more patience. Not a huge amount of patience, but a little more patience. I've also started, since I'm on chapter 7 at this point, and they are averaging about 3,000 words, roughly, I've started to realize that there are some things that I think might be wrong. So I have a list, the Cat Called 2017 edit list, and these are things that I have this feeling that I didn't do a Save the Cat moment early on. I'm a little bit worried about that, so I just wrote it down so that by the time I get to the end of the book, I'll remember that as being something that I was thinking of. And there's just some things about how Brea and Bella do things that I need to make sure I keep it separate because they are twins. I'm not quite sure I'm keeping them distinct enough in who makes the decisions and who tends to be the leader and who tends to be the follower and who comes up with ideas and who implements them and things like that. I want to make sure that they're consistent. So I've written that down as something to keep in mind when I go back in the editing process. So I'll continue to write things on this list as I go through to make sure that when I do the editing process, I remember these things and keep an eye on them. So I started that, yay. As for dialogue, I really like dialogue. And there's definitely something that I forgot to mention. It's not paying attention to what words and phrases the characters are using. When you get a group of people who spend a lot of time together, like Shivam and I have been married for 10 years this September, we share a lot of the same words and phrases because we've lived together for so long. It happens in families. You have these little sayings and these little callbacks to things that is very insular to just the people you grew up around. You have it with close friend groups, and you'll probably notice that certain friend groups have slightly different words and phrases and little in-jokes and stuff and references that they use that are a little bit different from this over here. But then you talk to people you haven't seen in like 2 years, and the references are, they're not, the Venn diagram doesn't like do this, it's like these, where it's just barely touching. Everybody has certain pet phrases that they like to use. If you're, say, a nurse, and there are certain phrases that are used in nursing when you're on the floor doing stuff. I mean, just saying on the floor, you can tell my mom was a nurse for a while. Saying stuff like that, people outside of nursing who don't know nurses, have not worked with nurses, and have not spent a lot of time on a hospital floor would not know certain phrases. So they would never use them outside of that. And just as a person, I have certain things that I like to say, and I like to word my sentences in a particular order with certain phrases and pet words that we like to use. I don't expect anybody else to speak exactly like I do. Shivam and I share a lot, and my family and I share a lot. How do I describe this? It's really hard to describe this. Like, let's say one of your favorite sayings is fair enough. Let's just say that's something that you say all the time. You say fair enough. There are a lot of people who don't say that. That's not a normal phrase a lot of people use. In fact, some people probably hate that phrase. So when you're writing your novel, or you're writing your book, it's very easy to use the phrases and the word arrangements that you yourself would use. Which is why a lot of authors, I think, base certain people off of friends and family and acquaintances they have, because it's much easier to maintain the idea of them being an independent person and having their own set of words and thoughts when you base them on a real person. Another way to do it is when you're going through and making a little sheet of just a write-up of who your characters are, just give them all their own little catchphrases or their own idiosyncrasies. And that will help you differentiate them from each other so that they're not all using the exact same phrases with each other. And then when you meet somebody completely new, like a dude at a gas station, he says none of those things. Or you talk to a clergy member in a church and he has his own set of phrases. It's one of those little things that I've noticed that really drives me crazy. It makes the characters less distinct, and it shows the fingerprint of the author more heavily than you really want it to. The whole point of getting people to read is to keep them immersed in the story. You're selling entertainment. And just like a movie or a TV show, you don't ever want them pulled out of that reality that you've created for them. So you want to try to keep, I mean, you can't do it 100%, but you want to try to keep people within that world and immersed as much as possible. So these are just little things that you can do. Oh God, the other one is, I think I actually did mention in the dialogue one, but overusing people's names. I don't think Shvam let me talk as much about this as I would like, because I really hate this one too. This one really just gets my goat. I really hate it. And he totally overused it in the last episode that we just shot, which is driving me crazy. But in normal conversation, think about how many times a day you say another person's actual name. Outside of just getting their attention, we don't usually use each other's names. I'll say Shavam's name outside of something like this where I'm talking to somebody else about him. When I'm talking to him, I may only use it once or twice a day. I usually don't say his name all the time. But I've read in books a lot, and people do this in the dialogue. Every other sentence they'll say each other's name, and I'm not quite sure if it's just a way for them to try to make sure that the reader knows who's talking, or if they just aren't really thinking about it, or maybe they watch a lot of soap operas, because it really reminds me of like a Mexican soap opera. Oh, Maria. Ah, Roberto, no. But Maria. You know, it reminds me of that, because it's like the only soap opera I can tolerate. I don't watch regular soap operas. They're horrifying. The Latin soap operas are so much more fun because they're so over the top and crazy. I love it. But that's kind of what it reminds me of. I'm like, oh, this is so annoying. Please shut up. Nobody says that. Like on a day-to-day basis, people just don't say each other's names constantly throughout conversation. So it's another one of those little things that I avoid because it absolutely drives me bat crap insane in books. I hate it. I hate it so much. I don't know how many times I've been reading a book and gone, stop saying his name! No one says people's names that often! Oh my god! Like, I will absolutely yell at books when that happens because it's super annoying. I would hate for somebody. It also kind of reminds me when you're on a tech support call or a customer service call and the rep says your name like 3 times. That's a corporate thing. It's really annoying. I worked at a call center once and they tried to make you do that. Like, you should say their name 3 times. I'm like, dude, that is so artificial and it just sounds creepy. I don't want to be saying somebody's name I don't even know 3 times to them. It's creepy. I'm not doing it. I don't think I ever did. Ugh, it's so annoying. I'm sorry, corporate America. That is stupid. Stop making people do that. It's so bad. So avoid that. I mean, you can say it every once in a while, but just avoid saying it constantly. And try to keep people's phrases and the words that they use and just their overall cadence different and distinct. I mean, it doesn't have to be hugely different, but just a little bit. Try not to use the same words and phrases all the time with people because it kind of pulls you out of the immersion. And it's kind of lazy. It's kind of annoying. Any little thing that can make your book better is... I have yammered for entirely too long. I have no idea how much of this video is salvageable. And that is okay. And I have to edit next week's video. Woo. And this one. Woo. So I guess that's all for me. So I'll see you guys Sunday for our regular video, and most likely next week for my next supplemental. And until then, get writing. Dot wow.